Hey, Mr. Howard here with a short video on how to write an email. Um, I'm not trying to call anybody out, and I'm not trying to be condescending or anything like that. But especially now when we live in a virtual online world, it's important that you be able to write an appropriate and proper email in the style that's expected in the workplace. And I don't know that anybody's ever taught that to you. So this is going to be a relatively short video lecture. I'm going to attach a useful web page that you can look at for pointers, and then I'm going to ask you to write me an email, and send it. We're not going to do it as an assignment where you submit it to the classroom. I will put my email in there, and you will email me through the computer, and we'll see how that works. So the reason that I'm doing this is because I've gotten all kinds of emails that are not really appropriate for a student-teacher relationship. It's not like the content is inappropriate. It's generally the format and the way that it's written. So I've gotten plenty of emails that don't have a subject line. There's no subject line in there at all. I've gotten plenty of emails that are in incomplete sentences and have no capitalization. I've got emails that don't have a greeting or an opener. Don't have a closer, and they are all of one sentence long. And that sentence is a question, and it ends with a period instead of a question mark. And so if I sound frustrated about this, I think the frustration is that I've taught you all how to write all year long, and you all know how to write, and yet the problem is, and I think this is the problem, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the problem is that you're thinking about emailing the same way that you think about texting, and they're two very different models. How you email your friends, you can email your friends like you're texting, but in a relationship where you've got a supervisor or a teacher or somebody who's theoretically an authority, you need to write them in the formal accepted style, which is much more like writing a letter than it is like writing a text. And so we've got to break that chain. So here's the deal. The first thing you need to do with your email is have a meaningful subject line. The subject line should sort of be a title. It explains to me when I'm looking down my list of emails what it is that you're looking for. It should be bigger than one word. It shouldn't just be like help or makeup. You should try and make it clear. You could write make up timed writing Q2. That's very clear. Or please help me with this thesis. Something like that where, I can tell from looking at your subject line exactly what it is that you're trying to tell me or ask me, and I don't have to go fishing in the email for it. So it's an important line, and you want to have it, there. Certainly you want to have it there, and you don't want it to be confusing. So then you start your email, and you've got to have an opener. Generally speaking, in a formal letter, you'd write, "Dear Mr. Howard." You don't have to do that in an email. An email is less formal than a letter on paper. You can, if you're more comfortable with "Dear Mr. Howard," go ahead and use "Dear Mr. Howard." That's cool. I'm never going to get offended that you were too formal, and I think most bosses wouldn't. But you do want to mention my name. You want to say Mr. Howard, comma, or hello, Mr. Howard. We're in the middle of a pandemic, so it's generally recognized and acceptable to say, hello, Mr. Howard, I hope you and your family are doing well, or something like that in your opener. And I try and do that when I write back to you. I try and have an opener that's like, hey, so-and-so, I hope you and your family are doing fine. I hope you're managing this well. It's just some sort of a stylized, formal, like you're recognizing who I am, and you're not jumping right into your request like I'm sort of some robot that's going to, or a genie that's going to grant your wish or something like that. So you want to have an opener. Then you move into the body, and the body, it only really has to be a couple of sentences long. You want to be concise. It's important to be. People don't want to read an enormous email. But you want to transfer your writing skills into this. Think about the words. Think about what you want to say. Remember that writing, and this sounds cynical, writing is a form of manipulation. If you want to get what you're after, you've got to think about how you're writing what you're writing and how you're going to make the best impression and how you're most likely going to get the result that you want to get through this email. People that are good writers think about who their audience is, what they're trying to achieve through the email, and write it in the best possible way to achieve that. You keep it short, you keep it concise, but you make sure it's grammatically correct. You make sure that your sentences are sentences. You make sure that you've capitalized everything that needs to be capitalized. All of that kind of stuff. And then all you need is a closing. So after you've got your body, you go down, you do this closing thing. And the closing is just saying goodbye, essentially. You're like, thank you for your help. And then you sign it with your name. And a lot of emails are missing that opening and closing. It's just a simple sentence. And sometimes that's okay. So there is an exception. It turns out that if you're in a long series of emails, the more emails there are and the more quickly they come, the less email rules apply and the more texting rules apply. So as somebody who is writing to somebody who is theoretically a superior, I know I'm just a teacher, I'm not your superior, but in the sense I'm grading you for the class, we'll assume that I'm a boss in this role. If you're having a back and forth with somebody who's in that role and they drop the greeting, then it's okay for you to drop the greeting in your follow-up email. If they drop the closing, it's okay for you to drop the closing in your follow-up email. It becomes less formal. It becomes more of a conversation and less of a letter, and that's something that's perfectly acceptable in email in general. So the last thing I'm going to say, and I already hinted at this when I said you want to capitalize, you want to punctuate, you want to make sure you got your Oxford commas in there, you want to make sure your email is grammatically sound. Proofread. There is nothing worse than sending an email to somebody and hitting send and then realizing that you've got the wrong word in there or that you've done something. So stop. Don't hit send. Never hit send as soon as you're done with the email. Stop. Take a breath. Read the whole thing once over carefully and try and fix all of your grammatical errors, fix all of those typos, all that kind of stuff. This is especially true when you're writing to your English teacher. Like, I am trained to find grammar errors. It's what I do. And so you can imagine how it's kind of frustrating when I see all of these things that we've been working all year to root out and improve showing up in the emails that I'm receiving from my students who, if they took 2 minutes to proofread their email, this wouldn't be happening. So this, like I said, I'm not trying to call anybody specific out. If you go back through your emails now and you find that you're one of these people I'm talking about, I'm not doing this to be a jerk. I'm doing this to help you out in your future online encounters with all of your teachers, with your bosses, with everybody with whom you come in contact. Take the time to be formal enough that you're not incurring the judgment of the person reading on the other side, because that's the reality. Just like people judge you for what you say in a conversation, people judge you for how you write in an email. And they'll judge you for your grammar. They'll judge you for your choice of diction, for, the way that you've organized it. And it's best for you to write in a way that doesn't incur judgment. Just like it's best to dress in a way that doesn't incur judgment. You want to be appropriate for the occasion, no matter what it is. And if you think about this in that way, maybe that'll strike a chord and it will make sense. So I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to send you off to write an email, and we'll see how that goes. Thanks.